Welcome back, everybody, to the Enemy's Perspective, a UteNation podcast where today we're discussing the final home game of the 2025 season, Utah versus Kansas State. Today's guest is Dere Young, publisher and football insider for KansasStateOnline.com. Derek, I know you have a tight schedule of football and basketball right now. Thank you so much for taking the time. We do appreciate that.
Hey, anytime. We got some good football good football for you guys. I don't know about Kansas State.
Well, maybe. But on that note, Kansas State preseason was ranked 17th in the nation. But right now they're sitting at 5-5, 4-3 in conference play, unranked. What are the reasons that Kansas State hasn't quite lived up to what everybody thought they would be coming into the season?
Yeah, it's a good question. You said 4-3 in the Big 12.
Yep.
Which I believe that's accurate. It doesn't feel that way. Tell you what, it feels like more like 2-5 or something of that nature. Just about everything that could go wrong has gone wrong this year. It had to do with an awful start to the season, and maybe that can be attributed to the Ireland hangover that everyone talks about. I don't know if that's a real thing, but if it is, it certainly hit Kansas State, because after coming back from Ireland, where they lost to Iowa State in very close fashion, a game where both teams I thought played pretty well.
That was an exciting game.
Yeah, they lost to Army and Arizona, so that really sunk, and barely escaped North Dakota with the win. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that was close. I mean, it took a fourth quarter comeback over North Dakota,
right?
North Dakota or North Dakota State.
North Dakota. It was a last-minute drive by Avery Johnson, so you're sitting there 1-3 and fortunate to not be 0-4. So that really took the win out of their sails for the season. And since then, like, the Army and Arizona losses are inexcusable. To be honest, the Baylor loss on the road was inexcusable. It's another game where they should have had. Everyone's like, well, you play at Baylor, you never know. I mean, that's an okay team, and Utah obviously just dismantled Baylor in Waco last week, 55-28. Kansas State and Baylor down 14 in the fourth quarter and had the ball. And somehow found a way to lose. So I would say, they are sitting here 5-5, but shouldn't have lost to Army, shouldn't have lost to Arizona, and definitely shouldn't have lost to Baylor, because they had a commanding lead at that point in the game. Texas Tech and Iowa State, I'll give you. So this is a team that's just not prone to a lot of focus, discipline, maturity, and now I will say the injuries are mounting. They lost their starting left tackle before the season started. Okay. They basically lost their starting running back, Dylan Edwards, on the first snap of the season. The opening kickoff. Oh, no. The opening punt return of the season. And then he played against UCF, got hurt again against Baylor, never to be seen again. Jerron Bradley, a starting receiver, has missed 5 games, I believe, and parts of 2 others. Jace Brown has missed 2 full games, 3/4 of another, and will miss the remainder of the season. Starting defensive end Toby Osunsami, their best pass rusher, has missed the last 4 games, will miss the last 2. Ryan Davis, the defensive end, missed the first 3 games, part of another. George Fitzpatrick is starting left tackle that will miss all 12 games. It has not been a healthy year for Kansas State.
Utah fans can sympathize with that. The way the last few years have gone for Utah have been just injury-ridden. This year's been pleasantly there's been some losses, some pretty heavy injuries, especially in the quarterback position. But compared to where things have been and where a lot of other Big 12 teams are right now, it's not going horrible for Utah.
Yeah, and starting linebacker Austin Romaine, a preseason All-American, also will miss the last 6 games of the season. I forgot about that.
Okay.
Basically, their top 3 defensive players and top 3 offensive players are all out for the season.
And that can just derail a season right there, especially in this age where it can be hard to keep really good talent in depth, because with the transfer portal, obviously. But so I'm glad you brought up Dylan Edwards. That's some more recent news. He was really hyped up to begin the season. People were really expecting him, along with Kansas State in general, to be kind of a top dog running back in the Big 12. There were some injuries at first, but it's been recently announced that he's going to forgo the rest of the season. I don't know if he could or couldn't play due to his injury for the rest of the season, and he's planning hitting the transfer portal. What do you know about why he would want to call that quits before even the season's even over?
Yeah, it's interesting. Kansas State, I think, had 3, maybe 4 first-team All Big 12 picks before the season. He was one of them, and none of them are still available. So that tells you how depleted this team is. And it's a little bit of a bad luck here. For Dylan Edwards, he got hurt on their opening punt return in Ireland. Didn't play the rest of that game. Missed the next 2 games. Missed the next 3 games. Came back, played against UCF, was a stud. Re-aggravated the injury at Baylor. I think it was going to probably cost him a few more games. And I think he just got into a little bit of a situation where there was disagreement between he and the coaching staff, and he just decided that he wanted to part ways and go elsewhere. And because of the drama that kind of followed him, and that he kind of, I would say, eggs on a little bit. I think we all know those type of people. I think they were like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you go do your thing. So I think injury had kept him out. Maybe would have kept him out a little bit more. Maybe not the entire season, but he thought best to part ways, and they weren't going to fight it. What I would describe Dylan Edwards as this. This is the same high school prospect, and I'm not trying to say he's still a dumb young kid. In a way, he might be, but in his high school recruitment, he was committed to Kansas State, kind of got allured by the flash and flipped to Notre Dame without probably handling it the best way. Didn't tell Kansas State about it, even though his dad played at Kansas State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's another element here. So he flipped to Notre Dame, probably didn't handle it very maturely. He visited K-State the day before, didn't say anything about it. Flips to Notre Dame the next day. A week before signing day, without telling Notre Dame, flips to Colorado and Coach Prime, right? Because he spends his true freshman season at Colorado, gets unhappy there, so goes to K-State, and after 2 years, unhappy, going to transfer portal again. I describe this as this way, and I don't know if maybe the viewers can relate, but we all have those people in our lives that find a way to be unhappy or disgruntled like 90% of the time. Dylan Edwards is that person.
Yeah, and maybe to give him the benefit of the doubt, sometimes injuries can be really devastating for an athlete. So maybe that just accentuates that drama and unhappiness. But we can move on from there. Let's talk about. I want to hear more about Avery Johnson. He's been a very exciting quarterback since he started playing at Kansas State. He's made national news everywhere. He's had some really cool highlights. Where is Avery Johnson at compared to what your preseason expectations were for Avery Johnson?
Probably not up to the hype, just because this season hasn't gone the way Kansas State thought it would. So your quarterback, your team kind of goes the way your quarterback goes. Your quarterback goes kind of where your team goes, and yeah, he could be better. What I would say is, it just feels like he's in an impossible situation. The offensive line has underperformed and underachieved this year. He started the year, will go this entire year without his true starting left tackle. As much as I think the parting of ways with Dylan Edwards is probably a good thing for Kansas State long-term, short-term, they don't have a running back close to as good as him. They are under-talented there without Dylan Edwards. The gap between him and the next guy, they found out, was a little bit too wide to be able to stomach. Wide receiver, we knew going into the year they didn't have a ton of depth there, but the starters were pretty good. Jace Brown's a stud. They brought in Jerron Bradley, who had already had a stud year at Texas Tech a couple years ago. They brought in Jerron Tibbs, who was ascending at Purdue, has had a really good season. The problem? The depth, like I assumed, like I already mentioned, because Jace Brown is now out for the season. He's already missed 2.5 games. He's now out for the season.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's done. The Jace Brown will not play another game this season. Jerron Bradley was really productive. He's been hurt the last, I want to say, 6 or 7 games. He's supposed to come back this week. We'll see. I have my doubts. If he does play, that he will probably be limited. So it's just Jerron Tibbs, who is pretty good. But like I said, now you're counting on the depth that I already said was not good. I already said the running back talent since Dylan Edwards left is not good. The offensive line is underachieved all year. The tight ends are talented, but they've dealt with drops all year. It's a short way of saying Avery Johnson doesn't have a whole lot of help right now.
It seems like things have just, it kind of fallen apart. And that's where really things fell for Utah last year. So I think a lot of Utah fans can relate to that. But Dylan Edwards gone. Next up has kind of been Joe Jackson.
Not good enough. Not good enough.
Not
enough burst, not enough speed. He probably missed 3 holes last week that could have resulted in touchdowns where he just goes the wrong way. He's not seeing the hole, no vision. He's not good enough. Like Utah should not, they don't have to worry about him.
But it does seem like, at least statistically, he's come a little bit more out the last 3 games. He's had about 70 yards in 2 of the last 3.
Probably the only guy left there in the running back room that they're giving the ball to. I think they should give it to the other guys. I don't think he's good enough.
So who else? I take if Joe Jackson wasn't playing, who do you expect to be the guy to step up?
They might not give it to anyone else. They give it to Antonio Martin last week, where he has no lateral mobility and hadn't played in 2 months. Like, this is a team that's lost right now, and the backfield is a microcosm of that. I think they should be giving the ball to a little bit more to Devon Rice. He was from Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas, not far from out there in the mountains, but he just, for whatever reason, they don't trust him. So they're not giving him the ball. They're not giving him chances. They're relying on Joe Jackson, and he's not good enough. If Joe Jackson's the running back, Utah should be happy.
All right. So we talked about Jace Brown a little bit, and he's been a monster this year. Even having missed 2 games.
Yeah.
He's the 4th or 5th leading receiver in the Big 12, 712 yards on the season. He's out of the picture. Who's that next guy? Who do you think, if Kansas State were to win this game, who would be the receiver that gets that credit for making that difference?
Well, Jaron Tibbs is the best receiver left. And I say left, I literally mean left. One of the 3 left that can consistently make defenses pay. Like you said, Jace Brown's a freaking stud, man. And he would make it hurt for Utah if he was playing. Yeah. You just laid it out. He's on the precipice of a 1,000-yard season, and he's going to miss 3 or 4 games. Like, that's impressive. That's hard to freaking do. He's a stud, but he's not going to play. Jerron Bradley, if he plays, he'll be limited. It's Jaron Tibbs. He's the best one left. Outside of that, they're relying on a walk-on receiver in Isaac Koch. They're relying on a receiver that's in the lineage of a legacy at Kansas State with the Locketts. Everyone knows Aaron Lockett, Kevin Lockett. Everyone knows Tyler Lockett that played for the Seattle Seahawks, was in the NFL a little bit. Now with the Tennessee Titans, I think got let go. He's a stud. This is Tyler Lockett's little brother, Sterling Lockett. He is not a stud. He is not as good as Tyler Lockett. And Isaac Koch is a walk-on. And Adonis Moise is a true freshman that also missed a month and a half because of injury. And literally those are the next 3 up. So Utah's like, well, gotta love it. Week before the last game of the season, they get the team just eviscerated by injuries right now.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, it helps Utah, obviously. But it's just crazy how seasons can go like that, where
they're playing Kansas State at exactly the right time.
It doesn't seem like there's like a lot of average seasons for a football team, as far as there's no average.
To be honest, it's a miracle.
You have a couple or you have a ton. There's really no between.
Yeah, it's a miracle that Kansas State will have a chance to be 6-6 if they lose to Utah, if they can just beat Colorado the next week.
Yeah. I think they have a great chance at a bowl, because I think they have a good chance of beating Colorado.
They barely beat Oklahoma State last week, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, that was a rough game. But I feel like in the last few games before that, they have performed quite a bit better than that.
Different team, though. That was when they were healthy. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about defense. Had some injuries there again, but who are the guys on defense that could be giving Utah a real problem this week?
Yeah, your best pass rusher is out for the year, and your best linebacker is out for the year. 2 guys that'll play in the NFL. So you're kind of wiped out a little bit. Your middle of your interior, your defensive line is still what it needs to be with Damian Leo, Uso Malo, Malcolm Alcorn Crowder. Ryan Davis just had his best game of the year last week at defensive end, so I would assume he would be a guy that can really show up against Utah. He's from Arizona. Jordan Allen's flashed a little bit. He's a defensive end from the state of Kansas. But they are so thin up front because of injuries. And the back end, they have been healthier. And Gunnar Maldonado, former safety at Arizona, is coming on. He's the healthiest he's been this year. They're still kind of musical chairs at cornerback a little bit, but they held Oklahoma State to 6 points. But the excuse me.
Not good.
But Oklahoma State had 7 drives inside the 40-yard line.
7 drives. Okay. So, a lot of bend, don't break type of attitude going on there. But now, from Utah's perspective, one thing, even though they blew out Baylor last week, they struggled to get any good passing going. And part of that is they need to when you can run as much as Utah did last week. But for me, I think it's important for Utah, if they want that chance that they have at a at-large college football playoff bid, they need to make some noise in that passing game. Who are the guys, and how do you expect Kansas State to stand up to an attempt to assert that passing game?
Yeah, part of it's going to be the pass rush, right? How much can they get after Devin Dampier? How much do they want to get after Devin Dampier? Because if you rush him, he can get away too and make things happen with his legs. Obviously, he's kind of he's not really a run to pass quarterback. He is a run to run quarterback, and he'll pass it if you don't honor it. It's one of those types of things, I would say. And that makes him very, very dangerous. Kansas State hasn't really faced a ton of running quarterbacks this year, to be quite honest. So it's a little bit of a different test in that way. Secondary wise, VJ Payne is basically a 4-year starter at safety. He hasn't played really good, but he's a 4-year starter at safety. Gunnar Maldonado's turned into a starter. They play a 4-2-5, so it's more of a nickel there with either Daniel Cobbs or Quay Moss. And really the nickels have been the best part of the defense this year. Pass defense is all right. To be honest, the secondary is okay. Defending the pass, they do a lot of man coverage rather than zone. They're not great in zone. So that's one of the things that's why Kansas State, despite the amount of turnovers that they have forced this season, only one of the interceptions that they have picked off has been from a corner, because they play a lot of man, and obviously when you play a lot of man, it's not as easy to get interceptions. You must of that in zone. So we'll see. A little bit of musical chairs at corner, like I said. Donovan McIntosh has been in and out of the starting lineup just because he hasn't been great. Starting to go to a Marion Fortenberry a little bit. Zayshawn Rich is a stud. He's young, but he's a stud corner. So that's one guy that I would imagine that if they're going to attack someone, it would not be him. Kansas State can defend the pass. Their secondary is prone to giving up big plays on the ground. So maybe that's good news for Devin Dampier.
Utah in general, against Baylor, it wasn't just Devin Dampier. Bert Ficklin had, I think, 160 yards, and that's our QB2 right there, 160 yards on 6 carries. And Wayshawn Parker's RB1 has had 3 straight games with topping 100. And a lot of that's come from big plays, So with what you know about Kansas State, if your game plan, I know it's a refreshing time for Kansas State, but if you're a coach game plan, you still want to try to find a way to win this game based on what you know about Utah. How do you expect Kansas State to attack Utah offensively and defensively?
If I'm the Kansas State defense, I think he can probably do it, but I feel like my best way is to make them throw it. I'm not going to let. They might still do it, but I'm not going to sit here and just let Utah run the ball down my throat. I'm at least going to commit more people to the box to take that away and say, if you're going to beat us, you're going to be able to throw the ball. And they might be able to. They probably will. I have no expectation that Kansas State's going to be able to do well on either side of the ball. But if I was Kansas State, I would probably sell out to stop the run and just hope and pray that works, that Utah can't pop an explosive in the passing game. They probably can, but I would force them to be able to prove that. If I was Kansas State on offense, I have no idea. Like, I, I don't know that there is a way. Your offensive line is going to get destroyed more than likely because Utah is so good in the trenches, and Kansas State offensive line just got massacred by Oklahoma State. I mean, that's a disgrace. Their tight ends aren't catching the ball. Even if you had time to throw it, they're not catching the ball. Your receivers, you don't have Jace Brown anymore. You're literally one of your starters will probably be a walk-on receiver that has one catch his entire life in college football. Your running backs can't see a hole. I don't know how Kansas State scores in this game.
Okay, but I think Avery Johnson's a guy that has playmaker potential.
He is.
He's going to take some pressure in this game. Like you said, Kansas State offensive line took a lot of heat from Oklahoma State. They're going to take a lot of heat this week, but Avery Johnson is not a simple guy to sack. So how do you think he will respond to the pressure he's going to get, and what can Avery Johnson make happen?
He can maybe make things happen with his legs. It's possible. He's not as good of a runner as his athleticism would lend you to believe this year. He is a quarterback that is probably much better than what he has showed this year, but he's not getting help. He's going to be under duress, and this probably feeds into my theory a little bit. He is not very good against the blitz. He makes his worst decisions against pressure.
Okay, so pressuring him, you think could lead to more Utah turnovers potentially?
Yep, that's where the turnovers happened, even against Oklahoma State, because the offensive line couldn't block a four-man pass rush.
How many turnovers did Kansas State have against Oklahoma State?
2. They forced 5.
Okay. All right.
But that tells you about the offense, Riz, right? You scored 14 points on Oklahoma State despite forcing 5 turnovers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's less than ideal.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's fewest points they had allowed going into that game to a Power 4 opponent was 38.
But it does seem like an unusually bad game for Kansas State offense. They've topped 40 in 2 or 3 games this season.
Some of those were with Dylan Edwards, Jace Brown.
All right, so let's flip the script a little bit. Pretend you're Utah and be as optimistic as you can about Kansas State right now. What is the way? How do they need to come out offensively, defensively? How does Utah need to come out against Kansas State? And mind you, Utah, where they're at, they don't need to just win. A 7 to 10 point win isn't really effective for what Utah needs right now. They need some serious style points.
Absolutely.
So to not just win, but get those style points. What does Utah need to do? If you're game planning for Utah, what's the way to do
it? Really stick to what they're doing, right? It wasn't last week. Their margin of victory in a Big 12 game this year, 55 to 28 over Baylor. Hadn't they won every other game by 30 or more points? So last week against winning by 27 was the fewest. Keep doing what you're doing. And also, just send the house at Kansas State. You're not going to be afraid of the receivers. Just man up on them and just send the rest 7 or 8 to the backfield. Because, you're not going to be afraid of Isaac Koch, Adonis Moise, Sterling Lockett, guys that I guarantee you didn't know who they were before this podcast. Utah does not have to worry about those guys. Cover them one-on-one. Maybe you worry about Jerron Tibbs a little bit, but even he doesn't have breakaway speed. He's a good high point catcher. That's mainly contested catch type of guy. And then defensively, I'm not going to honor the run game. I'm not going to honor the receivers. It's pretty easy doing if I'm the Utah defense. We're better than you are. Mano a mano. As long as Utah doesn't overlook Kansas State, I don't see any problems. If I'm Utah's offense, it's a little bit different because Kansas State can apply a little bit of resistance, I think. The one thing that Kansas State can maybe do to a successful extent in this game is they can maybe keep Utah out of the end zone. They've kept a lot of teams out of the end zone this year. Until things really broke down late in the fourth quarter, Kansas State was keeping Texas Tech out of the end zone, right? That was a 7-8 point game in the fourth quarter until the last 7 minutes were things really came apart. Last week, Oklahoma State has the ball 7 times inside the 40-yard line. They score 6 points. Like, that's impressive, keeping them out of the end zone that much. So, if I'm Utah, like, selling for field goals, technically you don't want to do that, right? It would be enough to beat Kansas State because your defense is not going to get exposed. But you're trying to run up the score, run up the margins a little bit in this one, obviously.
Utah needs those style points, yeah.
Yeah, you need those style points. So, I mean, you could try to test the secondary a little bit. They're better at pass defense than they are run defense. If you're Utah, you're probably going to have to do what you did all year, lean on your explosive plays.
But yeah, offensively, you're thinking generally run the ball, offensive plays, and look out for the red zone. This is kind of what I'm hearing for you. But defensively, whatever is Utah against Colorado blitzed a lot more than usual, and that worked out really well against Salter. I think Colorado went in with negative offensive yards. So do you think they can have that same success against Kansas State that they had against Colorado with a really heavy blitz attack and really force Avery Johnson to try to make plays?
Yep. I don't think Kansas State scores a touchdown. I really don't. I don't know how.
No touchdowns is your prediction. So that is next. Right, the spread is minus 17.5 for Utah. A pretty heavy favorite, the heaviest favorite Utah's had this year, with the exception of the FCS school, Cal Poly. Do you have a prediction or bet that you'd like to share with us against that spread?
Yeah, I would say Utah like 27, 34-6. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Kansas State can score. They could barely score against Oklahoma State, and now they're even more depleted. And Utah is 100 times better defense. They're going to destroy that offensive line at Kansas State.
Okay, so potential 0 to maybe 3 point score for Kansas State. But on the other side of things, you also cover basketball, and I think that's good. That's looking a little better for Kansas State right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. PJ Haggerty's a dog. He's essentially averaging 30 points per game through 4.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. All right. So, hey, we're about to wrap things up, but Derek, it's been great having you. Real quick, anybody that wants to, where can people find you if they want to hear a little bit more about Kansas State football or basketball?
Yeah, I mean, Dere Young, KSO on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, work at K-State Online, kstateonline.com, part of the On3 network. We're doing great things over there.
Okay. Derek, thanks again. Really appreciate you taking the time. And for the listeners, please like and subscribe and follow for more UteNation content and coverage.